Hi, good evening, everyone. We're gonna get started. Give our presenters here a chance to get our full presentation in this evening. On behalf of the District Wellness Committee and NJ4S, we are super excited to present to you this evening, supporting youth mental health in a social media world. But before we get started, I just wanted to do a few introductions. My name is Jenny Jacobs. I'm one of the school counselors at PB School. I am also a co-facilitator for the District Wellness Committee. Standing over here to my left is Dr. Alyssa Shaleri. Dr. Shaleri is principal at North Boulevard School. And joining us virtually, we have Miss Helena Bronco. She is the Director of Student Services for Pre-K 5. I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Shea in the back. Mr. Shea is our Director of Technology. Thank you, Mr. Shea, for coming out tonight. And over here to my right, I have David Mills and Megan Gabe. And David and Megan are prevention consultants from New Jersey Statewide Student Support Services. So that's NJ4S. That's a tongue twister. So that's where the four S's come in. NJ4S provides mental health education to schools in and around Morris and Sussex counties. So I am going to turn the presentation over to them. And thank you so much for coming out this evening.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And we're Megan and I are excited to be here to talk about youth mental health and social media. I know this is a topic that a lot of parents are struggling with, and it's new, right? Like mental health is on the forefront of all of our minds. And then we have this thing called social media that all of our young people are very invested in. And I think us ourselves are also very involved and invested in. So we're excited to present this catchy title that we came up with, Supporting Youth Mental Health in a Social Media World, a guide for parents and caregivers. You can see this kind of as your survival guide. So Jenny kind of talked a little bit about what NJ4S does, and I could tell you a little bit more about what we do. I want to start with everything we provide is free to schools and families. So we provide 3 levels of programming. So we have community education, which is what we're doing here tonight, just on different mental health topics for students, parents, school faculty, and just community members in general. We also have prevention programming where we go into schools and provide programming in the classrooms to students on different topics like suicide prevention, substance use prevention, and a bunch of other topics, just overall social, emotional learning programming. And then we also provide free counseling to students in Morris and Sussex County. So we have clinicians who can come into schools and provide free counseling to students in need. So it's a really cool program, and Megan and I are grateful to be a part of it. So I do just want to give a content warning. We are going to be talking about mental health, and with that comes discussions around depression, anxiety, and suicide, right? We can't really talk about mental health without talking about the risk of suicide. So I just want to give that little warning. And if at any time you feel like you need to like turn your screen off, take some time away, mute yourself, please feel free to do that. Megan and I will be around after the presentation if anybody would like to talk. We have some really great resources, so we are here. And I'm going to hand it over to myself. It's not MG just yet. So here's our little agenda for the evening. We're going to talk about social media, and we're also going to talk about mental health and the relationship between the two and how it may help to promote the mental health of our young people, but also some of the consequences it can have for their mental health. So it's a very, complex topic, and we're gonna dive into some of this stuff with you all tonight. And then I will hand it over MG.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. So I will get us started with the distinguishment between mental health and mental illness. So for starters, everybody has mental health. Okay. And it is just like your physical health. The example that I like to use is people like to go to the gym or go on walks to work out their physical health, work out their muscles, their body, get it moving. And it's very important to focus on your mental health and think of it the same way, right? Filling your life with things that make you happy or that can, test your mind, keep it moving, keep it working like it's supposed to. Now, your mental health has to do with your emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And all of those aspects play into how we think, how we act, how we feel, and everything like that. Now, mental illness is something that discusses diagnosable conditions. Now, not everybody lives with mental illnesses, but these mental illnesses can affect the way you're thinking, you're feeling, your behavior, and your mood. These mental illnesses can be diagnosed by a mental health professional. And we just like to bring up the distinguishment between the two because, like I mentioned before, everybody has mental health. Not everybody lives with mental illnesses. Now, I'd like you all to just take a minute to yourself and reflect on your own relationship that you have with social media. Okay, so think to yourself, number one, did you use any social media today? I know I did. A lot of people do. It is very difficult to not use it, especially with the world that we live in. Number two, is social media where you get the information about things that interest you? I know a lot of people might say yes to that. I don't really foresee anybody saying no, like a hard no. Number three, does social media make you feel connected to friends and family? If you ask my mom, that's 100% yes. She loves Facebook and she posts everything on there. Number four, do you sometimes feel like you can't go a day without social media? So that's where we kind of start getting into the warning signs like, okay, you might be a little dependent on it, might need to take a step back. Number five, do you think social media is good, bad, or both? I'm sure today we're going to discuss there are both positives and negatives and ways around both of them. And number six, do you sometimes stay up later than you planned because of social media use? Again, that is a very common one that we get. Now, after you think of your own relationship with social media, I'd like you to think about your teens' relationship with social media or how you think they might have responded to those questions. Thinking of these questions and having that check in with yourself is how we could start to take note of patterns of maybe negative social media use or if something is affecting us more than we think about. So we're going to start with the benefits of social media. So like I mentioned before, it is a great way to utilize communication. You could connect and stay in touch with friends and family. You could receive things. You could share things that, you might not be able to share over the phone or something like that. It's a great way of self-expression and to magnify your creativity. There's plenty of apps and programs out there where you could express yourself in different ways. It's a great way to build a community. I follow one of the influencers I follow has, invited all of her followers, and it's just a positive kind of group. So you could build any community that you want to there, and it's also a representation of your culture and your sense of identity in the outside world. And then it's also good for entertainment. You could always indulge in something that brings you joy or funny things or something like that. Back to David.
Yeah, thank you for those thoughtful things to think about our own social media use. And we have conversation with our young people. We have to reflect on our own use when having those conversations with them. So it's really important. So with the benefits, there are also some negatives, and we're going to go into each one individually, explore them, talk about them, talk about how they affect our youth's mental health. So comparison. One of my favorite quotes is, "Comparison is the thief of joy." And I think we can all relate to that, right? We're always, even without social media, we're always comparing ourselves to others. And now we have this device that allows us not only to compare ourselves to the people that we see every day, physically, but people all over the world. And we're seeing people living these lives that, make us feel like we're not really making the most of our lives, or we're not doing things that are as interesting. And as adults, we can reflect on that and have, we have conversations with ourselves, and we're more comfortable with where we're at in life. We got to remember our teens, that's not really conversations they're having with themselves. They are much more insecure about where they're at in life. They haven't really figured out who they are yet. So seeing, always seeing people to compare themselves to, it really affects their self-esteem and their confidence and their overall mental health. So just some statistics, and the statistics here are not to like scare anyone. They're just, we want people to see what, what the science is saying, right? So, according to the Surgeon General, 3 hours of social media use or more a day has a negative impact on teens' mental health. And I think we all know that most teens are, on social media for more than 3 hours a day. And 70% of teens and young adults in the US experience social media addiction. So it is something that's widespread, but we're going to talk about, how you can use social media to connect with the young person in your life, kind of use it as a tool in your favor. So another downfall of social media. Oh, this is MG. Here you go.
Yeah. So like David was saying, another downfall of social media is FOMO, what a lot of kids call it, or the fear of missing out. So the fear of missing out is the feeling that, you're seeing other people live these exciting and fulfilling lives, and I'm just stuck going to work every day. And, I have some fun things here and there. But either I don't have the money for this, or I don't have clothes as fancy as that, or I have never done that activity or anything like that. Right. So that constant comparison could lead to an increase in feelings of loneliness, depression, reduced emotional well-being, okay, dissatisfaction with social wellness, right? So all of these feelings, right, they stem from that comparison. And it's really important to remind yourself that comparison is the thief of joy, like David loves to say. Okay. Now, cyberbullying is a very, very important and prominent topic in our world today. Bullying could happen anywhere, right? But cyberbullying could happen anywhere at any time. It could be 24/7, and it could show up in many, many different forms. So some of the forms that we see are posting inappropriate or private pictures of somebody else, tagging someone in hurtful posts or commenting hurtful things under a post, texting negative things about someone, or sharing harmful content or hurtful content. So it's very important that when you see cyberbullying, whether you are another teen and you see somebody else being cyberbullied, or you're a parent or anything of that sort, it's very important to jump in as soon as you can. Okay, these things can rise drastically in a very short period of time. And the other thing I want to point out about cyberbullying is it could reach a very big variety of people very, very quickly, a lot quicker than if somebody was talking about somebody behind their back in school. So excessive use of social media, it could lead to many negative things. So I know a lot of times it's very difficult to unplug, right? Or to disconnect from social media. I find myself struggling with it a lot. But these teens or these kids and the youth, right? They're running around, they're doing school, after school activities, everything like that. And then they get onto social media at home and they find themselves indulged in it, right? Engulfed in it. So it could be very difficult to disconnect, which could affect their sleep quality, how much they're sleeping, which could lead to poor grades or poor work performance, loss of interest in former hobbies. That's a big warning sign, right? So a lot of parents, you guys know your kids, right? You know them better than we would. You know them better than their teachers would. So if you're noticing that they're not doing their same hobbies or getting the joy that they used to from those hobbies, it might be a sign that they're on social media a little bit too much. or having a tough time disconnecting. It could also lead to isolation from friends and family. Back to
Thank you. I'm the statistics guy. So, you're going to see some statistics starting in 2017 through 2021, and these are not directly related to social media use. It's just showing a increase in rates of depression, especially among young people who identify as female. And the relationship that social media has on this is really kind of unknown at this point. There's some arguments that it helps teens feel more connected, right? There might be some teens who don't have any really like friends at school, but they have a whole community on a social media platform that they connect with. And so it's important to think about these statistics and really think about the relationship that social media might have on young people's mental health as a protective factor, but also a risk factor. And these are some mental health statistics directly related to social media use. So we see that it can have a negative effect on a young person's mental health. And like Megan was saying, cyberbullying is a huge part of social media. And I think as, parents and teachers and people that work with youth, we see the effect of cyberbullying. And since we are talking about the relationship between social media and mental health and cyberbullying, we have to have a conversation about the risk of suicide in our young people when it comes to social media use and their mental health. So first, I wanted to debunk some myths around suicide, because when you have a teen in your life and you might be noticing behavior changes, it can be scary, especially around social media use, right? It can be scary to ask them if they are thinking about suicide. And it's an important conversation to have. Something if you have that gut feeling, you should ask. And these are some myths that are going to help hopefully make that a little less scary. So myth number one, if people talk about suicide, they won't actually do it. It's just a cry for help. That's a myth. If someone's talking about dying or suicide, it means they've been thinking about it, and somebody should ask if they need some support and some help. If people don't talk about suicide, they won't do it. That's also true, right? There's some people who are thinking about suicide, but do not express it. And sometimes you can sense that. And when you sense that, it's important to ask the teen in your life, especially as parents, right? You know your teen best, so don't be scared to ask the question. Talking about suicide will put ideas into people's heads and increase the likelihood of a suicide attempt. That is also a myth. Talking about suicide does not make someone have the thought like, oh, this is an option now. If someone's been thinking about suicide, they'll be grateful that you started the conversation with them. If someone appears half happy after they've talked about suicide, they must be over it. That's also a myth. It's an ongoing conversation. It's check-ins here and there. You're always going to check in. If someone engages in self-harm, they must have suicidal thoughts too. That's also a myth. The two are related, but also they might be unrelated. So again, these are some really important myths to keep in mind when you're interacting with your teen and talking about their social media use and maybe if they're being cyberbullied and things like that. Oh, is this you in, Meg? All right, I'm going to pass it off to Meg.
Okay, so like David said, suicide is something that must be talked about. It could seem very intimidating, but it is crucial. So suicide does not always sound like I want to kill myself, right? That phrase won't always be used. It could show up in plenty of other ways. Some examples, I just want to sleep forever. I'm just a burden to everyone. I just want this to end. Why should I bother trying? right? So when you start to hear these terms, it's important to, a little flag or a little light should go off in your head, like, hey, maybe I should check in. Maybe I should see where they're really at. Now, navigating the conversation about suicide, like I said, it could be very, very intimidating, but it is very, very important. Okay. So asking about if they plan to harm themselves or kill themselves does not plant the idea in their head. That is very, very important. It actually gives them a space and permission to talk about their suicidal thoughts or what they've been feeling, what they've been thinking. You are not there to fix the problem. I know it's very easy, right? Whenever a problem happens in our lives, right, we look for the quick fix. I just want to fix it. I just want to take the pain away. Okay. But in this case scenario, we're not there to fix the problem, right? We're there to understand them the best that we can, try and meet them where they're at, and give them the resources that will help them. Another thing is do not promise to keep this conversation a secret, right? So we go into schools every day. We talk about confidentiality. A lot of what is said in the classroom stays in the classroom, right? And there's no law about that confidentiality rule at home. But if somebody is planning to harm themselves or someone else, it is very important that that is not kept a secret. Now, these are just some examples of what not to say versus what to say. Now, a lot of times, I know my parents are guilty of this. I'm guilty of this, right? So even if we say something with well intent, right? We're saying it with good meaning behind it, doesn't always mean that it's going to be taken that way. So some things could be harmful without us thinking of it, right? So some examples are, don't worry, everything will be all right. That might not help in that situation. We could flip it to, you're not alone in this. I'm here for you, right? Or what do you need? What can I do? This is nothing. Cheer up, okay? Maybe try validating what they are feeling. I'm so sorry you're feeling this bad. We can get through this together. What can I do? Another one is, you're too young to have problems. I've heard that one a bunch. This is a difficult stage in your life, and feeling overwhelmed is okay, because this is a very difficult stage in their life. And a quick thought, yes, I would love to be in 5th grade again. I had no issues, right? I did have issues, but for that stage of my life, right? So as we grow up and as we go from stage to stage, there are problems in each stage. So diminishing what they're feeling or kind of just wiping away their problems, it's not going to help.
So you're probably thinking, as a parent, right? Why would I even let my child use social media if there's all these risks? And, we all, like we talked about suicide, right? We've all heard about the young person who died by suicide because of cyberbullying or because of the influence of social media. But social media is a part of our lives, it's part of our teens' lives, and it's going to continue to be, right? So it's about, how do we connect with the teen in our lives, have honest conversations with them, and do our best to make sure that they are using social media in healthy ways. So the Surgeon General advises restricting social media use for youth under 13 years old. There's no real silver bullet here of when your child should start using social media, but like starting with supervised use. I actually had a colleague who told me the way that she introduced her child to social media was when she was 14. She set up an Instagram account for their dog that she shared with her daughter, and it was a very wholesome way to introduce her to social media and kind of supervise her social media use. Her pictures weren't on there. She knew exactly who she was interacting with. And we know eventually that our teen is going to be using social media unsupervised, right? We can't have eyes on them at all times. We can't completely monitor who they interact with and things like that. So it's about setting them up for success, being honest about social media use. And I thought that that was kind of cute that she like set up an Instagram for her dog, and that's how she kind of like guided her daughter's introduction to social media use. And yeah, so a suggestion is start with 30 minutes of supervised use per day. So we really don't want to demonize social media because, like I said, it's part of our world. It has a lot of great benefits. We're able to connect with people we may have never connected before if it wasn't for social media and the internet. So the answer is not to totally stop using social media or have our teens stop using social media. It's rather to be aware of the impact it has on us and how we can be mindful in our social media use. So you've probably heard some of these tips and tricks before, and I know they sound a bit corny and you might think that stuff doesn't work, but I promise you, if you do incorporate these mindfulness tips and tricks when it comes to social media and encourage the teen in your life to use them, if you are very intentional about it, you will see positive impact on your social media use. So, finding balance, taking intentional breaks. So maybe that means, logging out of your Instagram account or encouraging a young person in your life to log out of their Instagram account for a week or two at a time. Creating screen-free time. Eliminating negativity is a big one. There's so much negativity on social media. So unfollowing those negative accounts or those people who are posting hurtful things and following accounts and interacting with people that spread positivity and have a positive message. And then, using timer or limits. Your teen might not like that, but it's an effective way to kind of have a balance of I'm allowing you to use social media, but there's some guidelines around it. And Meg's gonna go through some more for you.
Yeah, so like David said, I think it's really important to set a good example, right, for the youth in your life. If you are practicing these tips and tricks, it will help you, it will benefit you, and it will also benefit them. So some more tips and tricks, update the privacy settings. So I know on a lot of apps and websites nowadays, there is some content that you could block. There's some users that you could block or anything like that. So that's really just, being nitpicky about what you're allowing your youth to see, what you're allowing yourself to see, things like that. Encourage your child to talk to a trusted adult, right? It doesn't have to be you, right? I'm sure all parents want to be that trusted adult. I hope they trust you and feel comfortable with you, right? But as long as they have a trusted adult or a trusted someone who can give them that support, give them that help, or that ear to listen for them is very, very important. Encourage your child to talk to friends. I think there should be a balance between talking to a trusted adult and talking to your friends. A lot of times kids will say, oh, I talked to my friends about it. Okay. Maybe we need an adult perspective or somebody who's been through something like this before, right? But it is important. We want the youth to discuss things with their friends so they could relate to them a little bit more. And encourage your child to adopt a self-care strategies, right? Show them what it means to truly unplug, to truly disconnect, right? Or to have no screen time, right? What are you doing when you're not on your phone? What are you doing when you're not on social media? It's important. Now, when rules are broken, I like to start this off by saying, you are the parent, you make the rules, you run the household, right? We are not here to tell you how to parent your own child. Now, some suggestions if rules are broken, right? If they're talking to somebody they're not supposed to be talking to, if they're on their phone or social media for longer than their allotted screen time. Some things could be limit access, but make it a conversation with your child. Don't just snatch their phone away, right? A lot of times the phone is their only connection to their friends, right? Or they could be friends with somebody who lives in a different state or who moved away, who goes to a different school, right? So snatching away their phone doesn't give them that trusted friend or trusted adult if it's their aunt or something, right? So you can't just rip it away without explaining, like, hey, you know, you stepped over this boundary that we kind of agreed on. I'm going to take it away for a little bit. Right. And then communicate the length of time for the restriction and how they could earn it back. Right. Explain what they did, how it made you feel, right? Why it probably wasn't the best decision to make. Hey, I'm going to take it away for a couple hours. Why don't you go regroup, right? Spend some time doing a hobby or something like that. And then maybe if you do the dishes, you can get it back, right? And it's always a benefit for the parents. Prohibit high risk apps, for example, Snapchat and TikTok. So there are tons of apps, right? And cyberbullying or explicit content or anything like that can be found on all of these apps. And that's not to scare you, but it's just to bring it to your awareness, right? So do your own research, right? Look into the apps that your youth is using, that your youth is talking about. And if you don't like something, you can make a deal with them. Like, hey, you could have social media, but I would feel a bit more comfortable if you weren't on TikTok or if you weren't on Snapchat, or if you are, you know, maybe I could monitor it a little bit closer. And then use protection apps. This one, some parents love it. Some parents think it's overstepping privacy, but again, you're the parent, you get to make your own choice. Okay, so an example of this is Canopy. This app actually allows you have an account, you could log on, you could see what apps are downloaded on your youth's phone. Okay, you could restrict apps, so you could block Snapchat. So even if they try to download it, it won't download on their phone. Okay, or if somebody sends your child explicit content, you could be notified of that. You could adjust the privacy settings and the alert settings, things like that. Now, active listening. We've been talking a lot about having the conversation with your child. It's very important to have the conversation, right? So you could see where they're coming from, they could see where you're coming from. Now, active listening is when you are being fully present, right? Your body language, your eye contact. You're not sitting there on your phone. You're not watching TV. You're not doing the dishes while also listening to them, right? I'm sure that you guys want them to be fully present, fully listening when you tell them, hey, I need you to do X, Y, Z. So active listening is important on both sides. Giving your child full attention, leave enough time for that conversation, right? Don't make it a 5-minute ride to practice, like, hey, talk to me about this. I'm listening, right? And then they get to practice and they have to get out and they have to go. Or you are leaving for work in the morning and they try to sit and talk to you and you don't have enough time. So it's very important to set aside that time. Listen without judging or jumping to conclusions, trying to stay calm. Those things can be very difficult when talking about social media, mental health, right? You might hear some things that you are not too fond of or some things that might scare you, but it's important to stay calm, right? It gives them that space. It makes them feel a little bit more comfortable to open up about what they're truly feeling, what they're truly experiencing. The last one that I'm going to talk about is boundaries and limitations. Again, I will stress this. You are the parent. You make the rules, right? You run your household, okay? Now, developing a balance between your boundaries and expectations while respecting your child's privacy, right? It's very important that you are monitoring their safety, but also respecting their privacy. And it's a very fine line to walk. And a lot of people will agree on some things, disagree on some things, but that's where your own judgment comes in. Now, the question is to follow or to not follow. So something we like to suggest is if your youth is using social media and one way to monitor them is to follow their accounts, right? Or be friends with them on their accounts. You could see without going on their phone, you could see what they're posting, what they're liking, what they're reposting, kind of what they're engaging in. So it's just another way to monitor their safety and what they are joining in.
And I just also want to add in, when I was in high school, I did not let my parents follow me on social media. And it wasn't because I was hiding anything. It's just because my mom always wanted to comment. She always wanted to, post pictures and all. And, when you're a teen, as much as we love our parents, we're embarrassed of everything you do. So just be aware of that, right? If your child does not want you to follow them on social media, it might not be that they might not be hiding anything. It's just they're embarrassed of everything you do, unfortunately. And then when they're in their 20s, they'll realize you're cool and want to hang out with you again. So just be aware of that. And it might be a conversation of, all right, can I follow you, but I won't comment or post anything or anything like that. So that's a good little tip to think about. So we came up with some fun little ideas of how you can actually like use social media to connect with your child. This is, they are so in, social media is just part of their development, right? So we have to use it as parents as a tool to connect with them sometimes, right? That might be the only way that you can connect sometimes. So I like the idea of, asking your child or teen what the funniest or coolest post they saw was for the day, right? And then maybe you could share with them your corny post that you thought was funny. And that's just a little moment that you can connect, using social media. Um, Fun rules during family game night. You can make up any, right? It can be, you're playing Monopoly and the first one to check their phone gets their little hotel taken away, or they lose what is it? Boardwalk is the best area. They lose Boardwalk or something like that. I like this one a lot. Encourage your child to be an upstander against cyberbullying. So I know, I see some of the people that I follow on Instagram that are just, sometimes you'll see in the comments people just being really mean to them. And maybe you just comment, "You're doing great. I'm so proud of you," right? Add some positivity out there on social media, even if it's just one little comment, that can make a big difference for someone. Um, least amount of screen time for the week wins. This would be funny to see if some teens beat their parents in this, right? Wouldn't that be a funny flip of the script? So yeah, you could do that, right? That'd be a fun little challenge you could do. And you could say, if amongst your family, whoever has the least screen time by Friday, they get to choose what we have for dinner, little things like that. Actually, I think they send the notification on Sunday for screen time, so it might be Sunday dinner, not Friday dinner. Um, Share positive and inspiring posts, right? You can send your favorite posts to your child. Then that might initiate them. Hey, dad, mom, dad, here's some funny posts, or aunt, uncle that I found interesting or funny, and you might find them interesting and funny too. And then yeah, create family challenges. So that kind of goes into like least amount of screen time, or maybe who can go the longest without logging into their Instagram or something like that. Those are fun little challenges. It doesn't mean, listen, if your teen holds out for years and doesn't check Instagram, good. I mean, that probably won't happen, but hey, maybe it leads to them not going on Instagram for 2 days, right? And that's a victory. So these are just some fun little challenges you can do to incorporate, social media use and things like that. Another thing is just there's so much positivity out there on social media too, and really amazing stories and things like that. So engage with that part of social media. Encourage your teen to engage with that aspect of social media and avoid the negative things that are on social media and all those kinds of things. So yeah, fill your feed with positivity. I like the dogs, emergency responder dogs. And that's all we have for you tonight. We have some amazing resources here. This one pager has a ton of, crisis numbers, and we actually have physical copies here that I'll leave here. So if you wanted to come grab some, they'll be here. I'll leave them with Jenny. So if any parents are interested, she'll have them. For you just, to access. And yeah, anything you wanted to end with, Megan? That's it? All right. Thank you all so much. That's all we have for you. There's our contact info. Thank you.